right. Evening, everyone. Excellent. Great to see everyone this evening at the Peaceful Solution headquarters, and those who are joining us live on Facebook, please be seated. Welcome yet again to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Training Certification course. You can be seated if you're standing, and if you're joining us, hope that you have your book. If you don't, you can follow us online with the PDF versions of the Peaceful Solution. We're going to be continuing in the respect unit here. We are actually in chapter 6, developing a respectful reputation, and we've been in that chapter for some time now. We're almost done, but we're in, if you're wanting to know and if you're following along, we're actually in procedure 5. We did read that last class just to give you an idea as a teacher, because you need to know. Remember, in these procedures are your purposes, and it shows you your purposes and goals, but how to go about achieving those goals. And there's several goals that will lead to achieving the purpose of that lesson. So just for your notes there, procedure 5, which is on lesson plan 6, page D, that's where we are. And we started on page 161 last class. Of course, we did a little bit of review and going back and looking at some of the information that William covered in his class, talking about the 6 traits discussed in the previous section here, which are the building blocks of a respectful reputation, which is self-control, discipline, consistency, purpose and goals, education, and determination. Now, we covered those last week, and then we kind of eased on in from page 160 where William left off to page 161 where I picked up to, in addition to those discussed in the previous section, a respectful reputation is a combination of many other character traits. So what we covered there in regards to developing or building a respectful reputation are the building blocks. So kind of like the foundation, so to speak. The building blocks which are essential and necessary. You can't do without them to build a respectful reputation. Well, there's other components that go along with it that help you to develop this character trait of respect. This reputation, a respectful reputation, all right? And it says here, and we're on page 161 under reputation has character, that first paragraph. And it says that when practiced on a consistent basis, which is the previous 6 traits and the many other character traits, on a consistent basis, it marks you as a person of integrity with a reputation that can be respected. Now, we covered some of the things that we've presented in previous classes in regards to integrity and consistency and reputation, and how they all support one another. Just like the different systems in your body, the different systems in your body support one another. If you take something out of it, then usually if you've known anybody who's had to have certain organs or part of different systems like the endocrine systems removed from their body, sometimes they have to have something to supplement that. A lot of times it's some type of a drug, or they have to change their dietary habits and eat foods high in a certain mineral or vitamin or whatever the case might be, because something is missing. So just because it's taken out doesn't mean that everything else is going to compensate for it. Something else has to go back in there in order to replace what's gone. So this is why it's important that we educate ourselves and know all the components, all the building blocks to develop a positive character and to develop a respectful reputation. Because if we're missing one, then we're going to run into problems, and then we're going to be asking ourselves, why does this keep occurring? Why do I keep falling into this situation? Why do I keep getting involved in these with people who might influence me in a negative way? If you're thinking that deeply, well, there's something missing, and until you find that, then it's going to be hard for you to kind of have a well-rounded system of education in your mind that gives you direction and understanding and knowledge to make better choices, and you're going to continue with the same pattern that you're in. You see, the thing about it is we, at any time, given the correct knowledge, right, the right knowledge, and a suitable environment, and time to change, at any time, if there's something that we don't like about ourselves, we can change it. You know, we're not stuck. It's like people don't like where they live. Well, like one person said, you're not a tree, just move. You know, you don't like a particular bad habit or characteristic or trait, or you might see that, my dad did this, and my grandpa did this, and I guess I'm just going to be like that. I'm just going to have a short temper. I'm not going to have much patience, whatever the case might be. Well, no, we're not subject. Now, remember, we learned in the first chapter of the character unit that, yes, those are factors. Okay, they are factors in the development of our character. But unlike physical traits that we're born with, our character traits can change. Now, of course, a person has to know. They have to have the knowledge. They have to have the facts to help them to see, yeah, this characteristic I have, it's not beneficial. When I walk into the room, now everybody gets down. I don't mean like get down and boogie. I mean everyone's temperament, their feelings. The environment just goes down a few notches because, oh boy, here comes such and such. The ladies clutch their purses, the men's check their wallet and their watches. Because the person might have a reputation of being a thief. Right? Or a person might have a reputation of being a smooth talker, but they don't carry anything out. And they talk a great game, but they don't walk the walk. Right? And so these are the things that are placed in people's minds when we talk about reputation. If we go back to the, was it 147? Page 147 here at the very beginning of the chapter. It says, your reputation is your overall character as seen or judged by others. All right, so this is not something that people might be able to fake it, as they say, fake it till you make it. People might be able to fake or put up a false front for a short period of time, but remember, it's not how people see you for the first time or how people see you one time, but it's overall. Over all the times that they see you, over all the different situations that they've seen you, having to respond in, watched you having to make certain choices, saw how you responded to somebody who might have, said something that was kind of offensive, right? It's your overall character, so that determines your reputation, and it's determined by your daily choices, attitudes, and actions. So, just keep that in mind. A lot of times people think that if they can just, pull off a false impression for a short period of time, they can get what they want. And, as parents, you kind of learn that in dealing with children, because when they really, really want something, and it's not just children, adults do it too, when they really, really want something, oh man, all of a sudden, no problem keeping their room clean. Yes, father. Yes, mother. Whatever the case might be. Would you like me to cut the grass too? I'll take out the trash. I mean, no problem. Anything extra, I can do it. And then they finally get what they want. And it's like, hey, will you take out the trash? All right, I'll get it later. Where is your floor? I literally can't see your floor through all of your items and belongings on it. It looks like a floor of carpet and Legos and stuff like that, and that's a false front, right? But what we're trying to get the students to understand is that they have to be consistent, right? They have to be consistent in their daily actions, their daily choices, and their daily attitudes to develop this respectful reputation that will take them so far in life, right? And you think about people who are considered world renowned, right? That's because their success rate, like where I'm from, there's a hospital called Cleveland Clinic, and it is world renowned for cardiac right? Heart health. It's world renowned for their cardiology, their department in cardiology. Okay, and I mean literally, people from the Saudi Emirates and different places from all over the world, will come to have their issues with their hearts treated or surgery done because those people want the best. Well, how did they know that that person was the best? How did they know that that hospital was the best? Because the reputation has gone out. It's not going to be reputation that's gone out because they've had 5 successful top-notch surgeries and 300 failures. No, it's because they have a high success rate in what they're doing. And that's what we're trying to get our students to understand, that they too need to have a high success rate in making positive moral choices. And this is something else that we talk about in this unit here. It can take a lifetime to build a positive reputation, but it can be lost in one single act. One single act. I was just looking at, just thinking about the news. There was a very popular news anchor who worked for one of the pretty high, reputable news agency. And he was like one of their top guys for many, many years. And then it was found out that he had falsified some information on a report. And this guy had great reputation. He had, probably run some awards for his newscasters, like, Scripps Awards and things like that, and broadcasters and anchors and reporting. But after that was found out, his reputation went really quick. And now you don't hear anything about him anymore. You just don't hear anything about him anymore. And that's how fast these things can be lost. Now, he could build it back up, right? He could build it back up if that was so his desire. But what we want to instill in the minds of the students, that it's easier to build and maintain a reputation than it is to lose it and then try to fix it later, right? So, again, this goes back to the things we covered previously, and being consistent, being reliable, and so forth. All right, so then we got into last class, we kind of started getting into honesty there, because these are the many other traits. Now, it doesn't go into every single one, but these are some important traits to understand or to add to, use in combination with the previous 6 that we covered, that William covered, to help you to develop a respectful reputation. So honesty there, and we started last class, and it says one important character trait that helps build a respectful reputation is honesty. There are many ways you can be honest. Did you know that you demonstrate honesty when you ask permission to borrow or even touch another person's belongings? And it was really kind of surprising. I don't know, I guess it shouldn't have been too surprising, but it was interesting to see when we were going out to the schools and having presentations, from elementary all the way up to high school, and even teaching with some of the teachers and people in the workplace and so forth. But when you would ask them that simple question, what is it called when you borrow someone's belongings or take someone's belongings without asking, right? And we said borrow because that's what people think they're doing. When you borrow someone's belongings without asking, right? Because people think in their mind, well, I just borrowed this pen or borrowed this stapler or borrowed some glue out of their desk and I put it back. And the majority of the people said it's stealing. They understood that much. And it was interesting because that's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what we taught them in the lesson there. And says, you can demonstrate honesty when you ask permission to borrow or even touch another person's belongings. So you don't even have to go through the action of taking it, right? Well, I didn't take it. I just touched it. Well, you know what that's called when just touching it takes place in the workplace or even at school, even in the schools or even just in public, right? Sexual harassment, okay? And probably many other things it's called as well, but you don't have permission to touch someone or something without asking first. right? You can't just go and do that. And even in some cases, you don't have permission to touch someone without asking the proper authority, right? You can go up to a 3 or 4-year-old and say, hey, can I pick you up and, take you over here to the park and, get you some ice cream and so forth. And the 2 or 3-year-old will probably say, oh, yeah, I like ice cream. I like candy. But do you have permission? Do they have the right to give you that authority to do that? And that's why we teach in the Peaceful Solution is not just enough at certain times to ask, but you have to ask the right person. You have to ask the person who has authority to give you permission to do what it is you're wanting to do. In most situations, in that last scenario, there's nothing honorable that will come out of that. So now by asking permission of the owner, you respect that individual's right to make decisions about the things he or she owns. And I mentioned last class, and since we have time, we'll go back there and just kind of refresh that. And I said, that would be a perfect time to take your students back to what they learned at the very beginning of the class in the character unit on page 10 and 11. Under what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Now, of course, this all falls under the categories of what we find on page 8 of the character unit, chapter 1 of morality. It falls under the 3 basic categories of morality, and that would be under category 2, behavior and attitude towards possessions and property. Now remember also what the definition of respect is to recognize the importance or the value of people and their belongings. So not just people, but people and their belongings. And as we know, and as we've covered deeper, it's not just the something that's tangible, but it could also be intangible, like respecting authority. Right? Now, authority is not necessarily something that you can see or that you can physically grab. I'm going to take your authority and now I'm going to put it in my bag and I'm going to take it home with me and now I have your authority. No, but it is something that people hold. So we can show respect for the authority that a person has by, following certain rules or protocols or whatever the case might be. And so then on page 10 here, it says under what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. It says behaving morally in regards to the possessions and property of others means to recognize that everyone owns things, even with people who say, I have nothing. There are some things that they own. They own things and value what they own. What one person values, another might not, but it is still necessary to respect the possessions of others just as you will want your belongings respected. Did you know that you have rights concerning what belongs to you? And this is something that the student has to understand, in regards to their rights, right? That everybody has those rights. They have authority. They have certain privileges that are afforded to them because of those rights. And it says they have the authority to make decisions about what you have authority to make decisions about what you own. You also, and this is what we mentioned in last class, have the right to enjoy what you own without the fear that it could be stolen. Now, like I mentioned, I know that many of us have had things stolen from us in times past. Could you imagine having your house stolen? I don't mean, having somebody hook up to your mobile home and pull off the property, but having your house stolen as in people come in there and they squat and they stay. I just saw a news report a couple days ago, might have been a week ago. Everything seems to run so fast together, but it was a $10 million mansion, I think it is, in Beverly Hills or someplace out in California that has been vacant for some time. Actually have squatters just living in it. And it's not enough that they're just living in it. It looks like the underside of an overpass. There's graffiti all over this house. They've taken the furniture and they've thrown it into the pool. The police, because there was a report of some screaming or something, so they sent the police there, and that's when they found like 10 or 11 people living there, But they had just totally ruined the house. right? And this, at one point of time, was on the market for about $10 million, right? Now, that property belongs to someone. Even if the owner sold it, it still belongs to the owner. Or even if the owner defaulted on it, it belongs to the bank, right? It belongs to someone. Now, if they want to, they've got to go through this tedious process of going through the court to get those people out of that house. And some states have laws that if you're there for a certain amount of time and you prove that you're there, then it's yours. But remember what we covered about, lost or stolen property, it still belongs to the owner. It must be returned. So it says, you also have the right to enjoy what you own without the fear that it could be stolen. Recognizing this moral concept means accepting that everyone else, not just us, because sometimes people only apply these things to themselves, but they neglect to remember that, it applies to everybody else as well. I have the right to not have my things be stolen. I have the right to be able to enjoy the things that I own, but they don't have that right because they were mean to me, right? Or they bully everybody else. So I'm going to see to it that they don't enjoy anything in life. That's the wrong attitude to have. They have the rights to enjoy things as well. They just need to be taught how to show respect to other people. So it means accepting that everyone else has authority and rights of ownership over his or her possessions as well. Respecting others' rights benefits you as well as them. And if you look down off to the next to that cartoon there, it says the narrative. It shows accept decisions others make concerning their belongings, right? And this, even if they don't respect our rights, right? If someone steals from you, that doesn't give you the right to steal back from them, because now we're talking about retaliation. So respect or accept decisions others make concerning their belongings is where I want to leave you off with that. Now on page 11 here, it shows you can behave morally in regards to ownership, and this is what we were covering on 161 in the respect unit, by asking permission before touching or using someone's belongings. And as a teacher, it's going to take a little while to drill this into the minds of your students to get them to understand, that it's necessary that we ask first. And I do it constantly in reminding my children, don't just go take something and then start to open it and then come and ask, can I have this? No, ask first. Ask first, and then we'll give you an answer. Because the answer might be no. But here you've already started the process of taking what it is that you wanted, right? Now you have to go through the effort of putting it back, or possibly losing it altogether simply because you didn't ask. And I'm telling you that one 3-letter word, the neglect to practice that simple 3-letter word, has caused so many troubles for so many people for so many years. And if we can just, including ourselves, get our students to understand how important it is, they could probably begin the process of solving 30 to 50% of their problems. Okay, even when it comes to knowledge, asking. It's okay to ask if you don't understand something, or if you've read something, where do you need to find something, where can you find it? Well, the teacher or whoever could guide you to it. And if you don't understand it, then that's what your teachers or your counselors or parents or whoever, your guardians, are there for, to help you to understand it. So you don't go halfway doing things thinking that you're following, just what you read. And so asking, it covers a myriad of aspects of our lives. And if we put those 3 words into a practice on a regular, everyday basis, we could have greater success. So it says here, you can behave morally in regards to ownership by asking permission before touching or using someone's belongings. But asking alone is not enough. You must also accept the response, even if it is no. So now, when you ask and a response is given, What do we call that? You didn't expect a pop quiz today, did you? When one person asks and another person gives a response, what do we call that? It's a big word. Communication, that's right. Communication, right? Because there has to be a speaker and there has to be a listener, right? And also a part of that communication is there has to be a response given. And remember what we covered, that in order for there to be healthy communication, respectful communication, you have to have someone who is willing and able to listen to you, to hear what you want to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure you've tried to instruct or communicate or speak with somebody, and they're, you know what, trying to talk while you're talking. You know, I don't want to hear what you got. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. I've heard it all before, you know. And it's hard to get a point in edgewise because they've already got something that they want to say. Or they're not listening, or they're not paying attention, or they're doing something, they're checking the time on their watch, you know, they're looking at the birds in the sky, or thinking about what they're going to eat for supper, or what's coming on tonight after they looked at the TV guide. You know, I don't think that still exists, I'm not sure. Right? And so it's difficult. So there has to be someone who is willing and able to hear you. And so in this process of the communication, the proper thing to do is respect or accept the response, even if it's no. Because we talked in the elementary series, right? When we dealt with the concept of asking, I think it's the third unit, ownership, respect, and asking. You know, we teach them that no is okay. No is okay. And we've even taught, you know, in the previous units, in dealing with risk-taking behavior, and instructing the students to say, listen, say no and mean it. You don't have to give an explanation. You know, you don't have to beat around the bush and try to, you know, I don't want to offend my friends, or I don't want them to not invite me to another party, or whatever the case might be. No, if they're trying to pressure you or persuade you to engage in immoral behaviors, just simply say no. 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 Mean it, and then go a different direction if you can. All right? Man, it must have been here a long time. Let's see here. It says, you must also accept the response even if it's no, and see the need for yourself to have the same right to say no at any time you choose. Authority over one's possessions means you have the right to decide who uses your possessions. Now, this is where we get into borrowing. And it's considered borrowing because of these key points right here. So who uses your possessions, meaning it's not you, when they are used, and so in a specific agreed upon time, and how they're used. And that there's your definition of borrowing, legally, borrowing. Because when you're borrowing something, that means even though you might have possession of it, you don't own it. Okay? This whole 9/10 of the law or whatever, you know, if I go rent a car and I possess it, you know, it doesn't mean I have full rights to the car, you know. I'm borrowing it for agreed upon the time. At the end of my lease or my rental, I'm returning it back to the owner, right? And when you rent a car, they tell you, like, how they're used. They say you can't go to Mexico and you can't go to Canada. Now, they don't tell you can't go drive into the Atlantic or the Pacific because that's obvious, right? But you can't take the vehicle to another country. So they set the rules for you, the borrower, as to how their belongings their possessions can be used. Not being able to accept someone's decisions about their belongings usually creates conflicts and hurt feelings. All right? And so at the very bottom there, it says, think about it. If you take someone's possessions without permission, you haven't borrowed, you have stolen. To borrow means you have the owner's consent to use his belongings for an agreed amount of time. Okay? So this is what we're talking about on page 161. And again, you know, as a teacher, you can, you know, have the book and go back and refresh that in your students' minds, or you can have a slide, or you can have a handout, whatever the case might be. Different scenarios cause for different actions, but it's great to remind them of that. So by asking permission of the owner, you respect that individual's rights to make decisions about the things he owns. And then here on, let me see here. Let's look at slide. Did I cover that last time? I think I did, but let's just go ahead and look at it again on slide 11. And it's under, this is from the character unit, chapter 1, page 17. And it's under, let's take a closer look at 2 positive character traits, honesty and responsibility. And it says, honesty, someone who is honest is going to be trusted to tell the truth, even when they do something wrong. And that's what we're getting ready to get into here. If just keep in mind what we're covering here, because that's what we're getting ready to start getting into here on page 161 in the respect unit. Even if they do something wrong, sometimes other people, even your friends, can pressure you to do something that is dishonest. A friend who truly cares about you, however, will encourage you to make an honest choice. For example, a true friend would encourage you not to cheat on a test or steal something from a store. A true friend would always be honest with you. And so you see a combination there of honesty and then what we covered in chapter 4 of the acceptance unit, in not only finding, but building a relationship with a true friend based on character. When you are honest, you will be trusted and you can avoid conflicts with others. Now, there has to be a certain level of tact given with that, or diplomacy, as we covered, given with that, because just because something is true doesn't always mean that it's advantageous to say it, right? Like standing up in the middle of the class and saying, well, this is, we thought this was taking place because, Johnny over here is a liar, right? Or Johnny's a big fat liar, or whatever the case might be. There might be aspects of that statement is true, but it doesn't mean that and this is where, as a teacher, you have to kind of teach your students how to use discretion in the way that they go about things, right? Now, a fact like that might need to be presented privately to the teacher. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be hidden, but it needs to be presented, but presented in a way that doesn't bring embarrassment or shame or harm to the other person. And then the teacher can deal with Johnny, who lied to the class, and caused them to, get in trouble because they were someplace that they were not supposed to be, right? Not you to go out there and try to make Johnny look bad, okay? So this is where the, using wisdom and diplomacy and things like that come into place in exercising these positive character traits. For example, or your example will help others to make honest choices, and you will be honest with the possessions of others too. Always remembering to ask permission before touching, using, borrowing, or taking something that belongs to them. That's the continuation of this slide here. It says, when you are known as an honest person who will not be persuaded to do something that brings harm to yourself or others, notice here, people will trust you with more responsibility. Now, depending on who you're dealing with and the mindset of the student until it's developed, they might think, well, I don't want more responsibility, so I'm going to be dishonest. I don't want more work. A lot of times people look at work or responsibility as merely work. And to a degree it is, but that could also mean more privileges. But more privileges requires more responsibility on the part of the person who receives the privileges. Okay? And it simply shows that you're a person of integrity and can be trusted. Whether you're in the presence of a teacher or a parent, or you're simply off by yourself. You see, when the character is established, you're going to do the same thing when you're around people in regards to your moral choices as you would when you're not around anybody else. And you remember we covered that in the self-control unit. The true test of self-control is what you do when no one's looking, right? Because it can be easy to be like, oh man, what is that over there? Right? That's always like this, just like the precursor to theft. People start, making sure the stickiness is strong on their fingers. They say people who steal, they have sticky fingers. I don't know what it is. It just gets stuck to my hand. I don't mean to grab that out of your wallet. Silly me. And so, when you're shown that when you're a person of integrity in regards to honesty, then yes, people can trust you. And if you're working to build a positive character, that's something that you want. When you're working to build a positive reputation, that's something that you desire to have. Typically lazy people, people who don't have a desire to improve themselves, they run from responsibilities, right? They run from opportunities to improve themselves. Why? Because they just see it as work. And yes, it is work to improve ourselves. It's work to avoid and not be subject to risk-taking behaviors or negative influences, because we have to constantly be thinking about all aspects, both sides of the coin. Yes, it does take work, right? And it can be a little tiring and taxing at times, but it's well worth the benefit. It's well worth the reward. Kind of like, the farmer who gets up and, at 5 o'clock in the morning and, plants his field, and he goes out and he, weeds, and he does this and he does that, and it's hot and it's rainy or whatever the case might be. But he reaps the reward at harvest time. And he could feed his family and feed himself and possibly even other neighbors as he takes it to the market. So we have to go through those difficult times, but there's always a reward. Remember, for every action, there's a reaction, okay? Now, an honest person tells the truth and will do so even if it means facing the consequences of their actions. And that's one of the things that is a precursor to people not being truthful, because they think they're going to get in trouble, right? They think they're going to get in trouble. The fact is, the trouble started long before the authority ever found out or had a suspicion of what they did. The trouble started long before that. Now it's just come to a head, and it's time for a consequence. But they've been actually gathering up consequences that whole time. But it's been like a person slowly being outside as the sun comes up. You just kind of ease into it. You don't recognize those consequences, and you just kind of accept them, and that's just a part of life, right? If consequences were sudden and hard, and the end results of those choices you were met with right then and there, people wouldn't do the things that they do. But the problem with society, or the problem with life in general, is that, like William covered in his class, not all consequences are immediately. So people think, well, because, as the example he gave, I was able to go around 3 or 4 cars and cross that railroad track and get to the other side so I can hurry up and get to KFC before they closed, right? And I didn't get hit by a train. I didn't get pulled over by a cop, right? Nobody even blew their horn at me. That's how smooth I was. Just because that didn't occur doesn't mean that I didn't suffer a consequence, right? Like people say, it's only illegal if you get caught. If a stop sign has white around it, that means it's optional. That white is for O. Right? No, it's illegal either way, whether you get caught or whether you don't get caught. So these are the things, the keys that we want to establish in the minds of our young people very early on in life, because there are a lot of adults that have that mindset, but that was the way that they've been taught. They've been trained in some way, shape, or form. So it says here, by asking permission of the owner, you respect that individual's rights to make decisions about what they own. An honest person tells the truth and will do so even if it means facing the consequences of their actions. And I know it can be a hard thing, and it doesn't seem like until a person gets older and they, depending on the circumstances or what they might have been involved in, there might be something, where someone was hurt or something, or, something was very expensive was damaged or was a great loss. And then, they'll own up to it, because they feel really bad about it, right? Now listen, I take The statement is, I take full responsibility for my actions. All right, I shouldn't have done that. But in some cases, the regret, that a person has can be lifelong, because some of the consequences of bad choices, right, can be permanent. Like ending someone's life because you decided to go drinking and then, I'm fine, I could drive home. What was it? I can't think of the many of times that, people have been in severe car accidents. We even had one of the poems read about the young lady who chose not to drink at the party and was on her way home, but somebody else who did drink and drive ended up taking her life. Right? Those are permanent things. You can't go back and undo them, no matter how bad you feel about it. And remorse is great, but it doesn't change the outcome of the action. So even if they're facing consequences, this takes me back to slide, I think that's 13 here, and this is a quote from the character unit, and this is in chapter 6, page 131, and it's under Be a Positive Leader. And it says, this is point number 3, there were several points. It says, positive leaders are responsible for their actions. The characteristic of being responsible is a combination of following through on your task and being responsible for your actions. It also includes not blaming others for your mistakes, but learning from them. Being responsible for your actions. And it was interesting because I was skimming through the news and I saw came across one of those judge shows or whatever where they read the paternity test, and it was in Springer, one of those guys. And I really kind of felt bad for the guy, because this was a situation where a man was with a woman and there was a child that came as a result of it, and as many, he didn't think it was his child. And so eventually she filed on him for child support, and they tried to get him for child support for a period of time. Never worked. So they eventually arrested him for failure to pay. In some states, they do. And this man served 5 years in jail for that offense. And at a hearing later on, as some things were being disputed, why this didn't occur before, I have no idea. But the reading of the DNA test found out that he was truly not the father. He was not the father of the child. And the judge asked, do you know who the father is? And the woman said, yeah, I know him. I've been in contact with him for a long time. I just thought that he should be paying. Now here's this guy, right? 5 years of his life gone. He cannot get that back. There's no time, no experience. Even if the city or the government or whoever it was to give him some type of retribution or something like that, that's not going to make up for 5 years of his life that's gone, all because someone was dishonest. Someone was dishonest and they wanted something, right? And so this is how, as we talk about our interdependence and how we depend on people within our society to make sound moral choices, and how when they don't, that pebble's gonna drop in the water. That action is that pebble that's going to drop in the water, and it's going to ripple out. Is it going to be a positive ripple, or is it going to be a negative ripple? And that's just one case of someone who is falsely accused. I mean, there's many, many people that are falsely accused on a daily basis. Some people he spent 5 years, in prison, 60 months. Some people spend 10, 20, 30 years in prison until it's found out through evidence or whatever the case that they're innocent. I really feel for that. I know what it's like to miss out on something, for an hour or two, or a week or something. I couldn't imagine being in that situation knowing that you were innocent of what you're being accused of, and only to find out that the person admitted, yep, they were lying the whole time. Horrible. But this is why honesty is important in working to build a respectful reputation. Let's see here. Here's another quote here about being accountable for your decisions. This is slide number 14. This is from the acceptance unit, chapter 6, page 121. It says the following are examples of how positive character traits can be used to maintain your goals. All right, so because keeping your word, this is what we're getting into here. Another way you can be honest is by keeping your word. All right, and so sometimes life, it becomes pretty overwhelming, and it could be easy to lose sight of the things we've said we would do, or focus of the things we've told a person we would do, or whatever the case. So, this kind of can be a help to us in order to be able to keep our goals, follow our goals, or maintain our goals. It says a responsible person is accountable for his or her decisions and actions, because if you agree to do something, right, you essentially have given your word, one, but now you have made a goal to get that particular thing accomplished, or at least you should if you want to get it accomplished. So they're accountable for their decisions and their actions. Responsibility in maintaining your goals means to do everything within your power to accomplish the task or task. Now that doesn't mean that old adage, by any means necessary, right? I'm going to get there if I got to do 110 miles an hour. All right, or whatever the case might be, by any moral, lawful means necessary. So within your power to accomplish the task or tasks that are relevant to your goal. And then you have an example there. And then underneath that, it says a determined person does not give up or quit. Determination in maintaining your goal means that even when things do not go as planned, you continue to try. And if you remember on page 159, that was one of the building blocks for building a respectful reputation, is determination. All right. So for example, if you tell your father that you will help him with the lawn, then you have committed yourself to the task, right? You've committed yourself to the task. Having given your word, you must follow through on your obligation. Committed yourself to the task. And man, I forgot to print something there, but that's okay. If we look at the next slide there, I think it's 15, yeah. So we have two words there, same word, but different suffixes. The first word is commit, and that's merely to obligate or pledge oneself. To obligate or pledge oneself. Yes, I'll help you with the lawn, right? Now, most young people or teenagers don't think, well, I've made a pledge to my father or my mother or my grandfather, whoever, to help them with the lawn. Or, on Sunday to help them paint the house or to clean out the shed or whatever. No, it's just, I told dad or whoever I'm going to help them with the lawn. Now, look underneath there, the word committed. It means loyal and willing to give your time and energy to something that you believe in. That's one of the definitions. Having promised to be involved in a plan of action. Feeling dedication and loyalty to a cause. I'm committed to saving the whales. There's a lot of different organizations out there committed to saving the turtles or the dolphins or, whatever the case. Some people are committed to, taking every stray animal off the street because they feel so sorry for them. And then you go to their house and there's 80 cats and 50 dogs and 20 pigeons, and it smells worse than the zoo in there because they're not committed to keeping it clean. At the same time, why? Because it's too much for one person. And some people go and think, well, they need to be committed. Well, that's not the case. They just have a passion without the manpower and the ability to take care of things properly. And some people actually do. They go and they open up animal sanctuaries, and then they work with the local rescue centers to try to get some of these animals adopted out. And this is why you got to have knowledge with these things too. A feeling, dedication, and loyalty to a cause, activity, or job, and it also is wholeheartedly dedicated. So that's when you're involved. When you commit yourself, you are committing to do something. And when you're committed to it, now how does someone know you're committed? Because through your attitudes and your actions, your choices, they see that you're committed to doing this particular thing, like building a positive character. He shows up once in a while, you know. He said he was going to come to classes, or he said he was going to read the books, and then you talk to him after they just get angry and they yell at people, and you're like, hey, did you go over chapter 2 and 3 of the self-control unit? No, I didn't do that. It's too busy, right? So they made a commitment, but they weren't committed to doing it, which is shown through our consistent actions. And again, that's how people see your reputation. They can judge you, right? It's your overall, let's read that again there, right? Your overall, on page 147, there we go. Your overall character as seen or judged by others. Overall. All right? So you've committed yourself to the task. Having given your word, you must follow through on your obligation. People who are consistently honest can be trusted and relied upon to tell the truth. I wanted to I'm gonna skip that slide there because I don't have the paper there, but I was looking up kind of the history of handshakes, because I thought it was interesting because back in the day, or many years ago, that could be any time back in the day, that's how people made agreements. That's how they entered into pledges. That's how they, got contracts ratified, so to speak. Was one of many. It wasn't the only one, but it was a very popular one. Was through handshakes. And I was actually looking it up, and that's what I forgot to print today before class. But let's see here. Just real quick, this is from history.com. It says, this was a quote from someone here. It says, an agreement can be expressed quickly and clearly in words. Now, a lot of times, people say things and they don't really back it up with their actions. It's kind of like looking at a product that you want to purchase, and a lot of people will go, well, what's the warranty? I've been asked that, well, what's the warranty? And the statement has been made, the warranty is only as great as the person who's willing to back it. Right? I can print you out this page of 50-year limited liability, bumper-to-bumper full coverage warranty on your brand new toaster, right? They try to get you to get a warranty on everything nowadays. You want to pay that extra warranty? $2. It'll cost you more in gas to go back and trade the thing in. But go and try to collect on that in some instances. And it's very difficult, right? So if a person or a company is not willing to back up their words, then they get the reputation of, well, they make an okay product, but don't try to get any help. Don't try to get any customer service or anything like that. So it says an agreement can be expressed quickly and clearly in words. The historian Walter Burkett once explained, but is only made effective by a ritual gesture, open, and this is kind of taking it back to the day when, here in Texas, people carry sidearms. Back in the day, people carry side swords, right? And arrows and things of that nature. It was an open carry back then, I guess. But is only made effective by a ritual gesture, which was open, weaponless hands stretched out towards one another, grasping each other in a mutual handshake. And that was just one example of it, but it shows there that that the handshake was something that kind of ratified an agreement. It showed that, I don't have, when they gave that example of the weaponless arm or hand, I don't have an ulterior motive. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who shakes a hand, or gives you the word is going to be responsible. And that's what we're going to be getting into next about responsibility, because, I remember growing up, people were saying, I think it was used in a lot of music, that word is bond. And that was an idiom, your word is bond, or your word is your bond, right? That sealed the deal for whatever we're going to agree with. In other words, you didn't have to shake a hand. You didn't have to sign 50 pieces of paper, initial here, sign here, date here, so you can get, a bicycle or whatever the case might be. It was just, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll agree to these terms. All right, great enough for me. And that's what people were taken by their words. Now, let it be one time not fulfilled, and you lose trust. You lose reputation. Well, you can go into an agreement with, Joe Bob down the road there if you want, but be expecting to wait for a long time. He'll say he's going to do it, but he doesn't do it. So having given your word, you must follow through on your obligation. People who are consistently honest can be trusted and relied upon to tell the truth. Let's see here. I want to see if I want to cover that if we got time. Let's see if we got 2 minutes. Let's look at, let's look at the last slide there, 19, because this goes into accountability or being accountable. And that word accountable, it simply means, or to account for something means, it simply, if you look up the etymology of the word, a is to, and then count is simply to add up or to count. It's like you have to add up certain things in order to, as we look at the definition here, it says someone who is accountable is completely responsible for what they do and must be able to give a satisfactory reason for it. It's like when the police come to the scene of an accident, or they come to a scene of a crime, and they're talking to possibly the suspects about the matter, and the suspects have to give their account, right? Well, the things that they say have to line up with the end result of those events. Now, an officer or detective might look and say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that's just not adding up, right? Because they're able to determine certain things and, find a different picture and see how, things added up. And so when a person is not able to give an account, right, then their story is pretty much broken down. But a responsible person is, right? Like, remember what we covered. Even if the person is facing consequences, they can be accountable for it. And they should even be able to be accountable for why they did the wrong thing. Two of the most, I guess it might be popular sayings, I know it was when I was young and it still is to this day, when you ask someone, why did you do this? Why? Because you want an account. You want them to be responsible for the choices that they made. Two of the most annoying answers I get is because. Why did you do that? Because. Because what? Right? Because just starts off a sentence, right? And what is the other one? I was just thinking about it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That might have been the other one. I don't know. It's not even I don't know. It's I don't know. I think that's one word in the English language. I don't know. I don't know how you spell that, but it's because and I don't know. Right? And yeah, and that's not taking accountability for your actions. And of course, young people, their fear is they're going to get in trouble, right? They're going to have something taken away from them, or they're going to get a consequence, another type of consequence. But as teachers, it's up to us to help instill in them the importance of developing a respectful reputation and, taking your consequences when you've done something wrong, because they can help you to make better choices if you learn from them and determine to make better choices in the future. So at the very bottom it says, hey, I'm going to the fair today. Would you like to go? And he says, I would really like to go. It sounds like fun, but I promised my father that I would help him mow the lawn today, said every teenager in this generation. So we're going to stop right there on page 161, and our next teacher will be David, and he'll be picking up on responsibility, finishing out procedure number 5 there. on page 162, and his class will be this upcoming Sunday, 8/20/2023, at 5:30 Central Standard Time. We enjoyed this class. I'm glad everyone came out. We hope to see you next class, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.